Rev up your engines!
Nokia flip phone says, Scotty, why do you always say Mercedes are unreliable when J.D. Powers ranks them one of the best cars in 2018? I always laugh when I see this J.D. Powers stuff. If anybody knows, J.D. Powers is basically a giant advertising company. It's an advertising firm. It's a PR firm. Why would anybody take their slant on anything? Because they do what they get paid to do. It's just the stupidest thing on earth. I don't know why anybody would listen to any of that stuff. I even had a thing years ago. At one point in time, my father sold Remington typewriters, and one of these Consumer Reports rated their typewriters as one of the worst. And everybody knew these Remingtons are pretty good typewriters. They're made of all metal, they're real heavy. So he called them up one time and said, how come you're rating these Remington typewriters so lowly? And they said, well, because when we dropped them 6 feet on solid concrete, then they didn't work as well. He said, these are a precision machine. You don't drop them 6 feet on concrete. What kind of a ridiculous test is that? Well, and a lot of those things from stuff like J.D. Powers is the same thing. They do stuff like best in initial quality. And what they do is, because I had a customer that actually used to work in advertising, and they would canvass people that owned the cars to see what they thought. And if they called somebody up and says, you know, what do you think about your brand new Chrysler? And the person started saying, what a piece of junk, I hate. They'd hang up and they wouldn't count that in the list of people they interviewed. So don't listen to anything that any of these PR firms say about anything, really. They're advertising firms. They're paid to talk about stuff. They're no experts, you know. They're just paid, and they have awards for the most retarded things, too. I mean, I can't wait till they have J.D. Powers the best toilet paper of the year. That wouldn't surprise me either. Daniel Yaya says, Scotty, what do you think of a 93 Nissan pickup with 160,000 miles? 93 was when Nissan was still making solid pickup trucks. I got customers, those things that have, you know, 300,000 miles on them. There's nothing wrong with buying one, but it's a 93, so what are you talking about? 26-year-old vehicle. So, you know, it's an older vehicle, and it's not worth that much money. Don't pay a whole bunch of money for it. But those things can run a long time, especially if it's a 4-cylinder engine, because those 4-cylinder engine ones, man alive, they could last a long time, and if it's got a standard transmission, even more so. They can run forever and just keep going and going. That was long before Renault took over Nissan back in 93. Those things were solid built. The customers of mine that had them back then, they were all pretty happy with them. Johnny Darter says, is there any truth that changing your transmission oil will lock up the tranny down the road? I got an 09 Pontiac Vibe, bought it with 90,000, now it has 180,000. Drives great, but I haven't changed the transmission or coolant. Okay, well, you want to change them both. Realize that's really a Toyota. It's Toyota engine and transmission. And changing the fluid in them doesn't really damage anything because they're a different kind of transmission. But let's take an American car like a Chrysler or a Chevrolet. The older transmissions in those, and some of the new ones still, shed clutch materials. They have automatic clutches. And when the fluid gets dirty, the only thing that's making them go is the dirty fluid, because there's more friction, so it keeps sliding enough in the torque converter that it runs. If you put in new fluid on one of those that has 180,000 miles, it won't lock up. Usually what happens is it just slips and it won't go anywhere, or it won't shift gears right. So on those you don't want to change. But on it, that's a Toyota product. Change that, and definitely change the coolant too. And use the Toyota coolant, the Holt coolant. It's much better. It lasts long. Manny Ramirez says, my Honda loses power only when it goes uphill. What causes this? Well, that's called losing power under a load. The heaviest load your car is going to have is when you're going uphill, especially if you're doing it at higher speeds. Start with the simple stuff. First, change the fuel filter. Something as dumb as a clogged fuel filter can cause that. If it's not that, after you change the filter, pressure test the fuel pump. A weak fuel pump will do the same thing. Now, if you have dirty fuel injectors in the fuel pumps, okay, that'll do that, so you get them pressure cleaned. That's a good thing to do. And this is rare, but it can happen. And you want to pray it's not that. If you got a bad automatic transmission, sometimes when the transmissions go out, they have problems going uphill. I had a customer years ago with a Toyota. Everybody say, oh yeah, you tell great Toyotas. Well, everything breaks eventually. And it would only act up when it went uphill. And I finally figured out and said, you know, it's your transmission, and I don't overhaul automatic transmissions. I sent it to my tranny guy, and he fixed it, and the problem went away. But that's relatively rare. The other problems show up more often, so check them first. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.